Hi and welcome. I thought we'd try something different for this video and perhaps the next couple. I've had a lot of requests over the years for a shop video tour, and I've never done it, mostly because the shop's always been in a state of disarray and I was really self-conscious about the mess. But I realized that eventually it's just never going to be, clean and neat in here for a pristine video shoot. So I just decided to knuckle down and do it. I know I really like watching videos from other people that do shop tours. It's always interesting to see the tools they've got and how they've got things organized. I always find it fascinating. So I'm going to try it. Please forgive the mess. This is a two-car garage attached to my house, a single-family house with a small two-car garage. A single-phase 220 power here, which is unfortunate. I guess technically it's two-phase 110 or 120. But I wish I had three-phase like Adam over at A-Bomb 79. I'm really jealous of that, but most residential homes don't have that option, and I don't. I called the power company and asked them about it, and it's pretty brutal. So it would cost me like 10 grand to get the power just delivered here, and then there'd be a monthly minimum charge no matter how much you use. So that was not really feasible. All right, so let's walk around and see what we've got. To give you some perspective, this is the door leading into the garage with the washer and dryer and all my wife's hangers and drying stuff, including some more up here on a secondary rack. That's on the left of the door. So I'm going to go stand in place of the door so you can see what it's like when I walk into the garage from the perspective of coming in. So this is the garage coming in with the mill and all of its associated paraphernalia on the right, and the garage door on the left. So I'm going to give you more information. I'm going to give you close-ups of all these locations with another camera, but just to give you a general idea of the layout, I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough here. So over to the right, I have my toolkit for supporting mill and measuring equipment. The mill itself, the rotary phase converter is mounted on the wall, and the motor is sitting on the floor on some blocks with some angle blocks I've got stored there. I have some shelving on the wall to the left of the mill with some of the heavy mill parts, and I made these shelves out of angled aluminum and some additional angle brackets underneath. I'll get more into that. Over here, which I know it's hard to see, is a storage rack, and I have a shower curtain, plastic shower curtain, to keep cutting fluid and chips from getting into that, and there's also a door leading into the side yard. Next to that rack is a storage rack I got from work, and let's pan down. It's where I keep all my hardware. Oh, also next to the mill, I have a vacuum cleaner. I use a vacuum cleaner a lot to suck up chips while I go. It works quite well, and instead of blowing around with some air, it keeps them pretty well contained. So I like it in general, but I can't use it a lot while I'm shooting, so that's why I do some stuff off camera, because it's too noisy to use when I'm shooting, even with a lapel mic. So this rack is where I keep all my hardware. I bought the additional shelves on top. Don't worry, I'm going to bring you back, give you a closer look. I know people like to see inside drawers. Next to that is a hydraulic lift cart, and on that, of course, I've got parts, because any flat space accumulates stuff, and the parts on that are for a long-term project I've been working on. Next to that, we have the lathe, and I'm just going to do a quick walk by. Don't worry, we'll get into more detail on all of this. Then behind the lathe is the other side of the shelving unit, which you can see is just loaded with crap, and another shelving unit directly behind. And I've got cases with stuff somewhat labeled. I'm still organizing, and lots of parts and tools on these racks. I'll take you back there for a little bit better look. Then next to that is a tool chest that I originally got from my wife to store her makeup stuff. She's a professional makeup artist one time. Now she teaches Pilates, but she was a professional makeup artist, and she stored all her special effects makeup in this case in her makeup room. Then next to that is my workbench, and the workbench has shelves above it, as you can see here. Sorry, that's not very well framed. And Down below it, I have a small tool case on top that is used for a bunch of hand tools and precision tools. Next to that are a couple of drill indexes that I got from a friend of mine. And this is the bench you're always seeing when I'm shooting, with my Rockwell hardness tester on it, as well as just tons of tools and parts and some interesting things that I just like looking at. Below this tool, the bench, is another tool case. And this camera's a bit hard to control. It fits right under the bench, and I'll show you what's in there after a bit. Next to the bench is another tool case still, and on top of that is my main surface plate, given to me by a friend of mine whose father was a machinist. And then next to that is yet another tool case for larger tools, and there's another surface plate on there, as well as I put my chucks there sometimes. I've got a bunch of miscellaneous small vices, my height right gauge, and I'm going to give you individual tours of this stuff. There's more shelving up above that, all full and organized, and I hang my big drawings on the shelving unit there for quick access when I'm working on the mill. Next to that is my Hotshot 360 from Stan Zinkowski over at Barzy Industrial, a fantastic little heat treat oven. He's got a new bigger version coming out soon. Makes me really jealous. Next to that is another tool case, except there are no tools in there, and I'll show you what's in there after, with some materials on top. My new grinder. Oh, and under here, which you can't see, under all this dust, I always keep it covered because it's right next to the grinder because I have no room for it elsewhere, is my plasma cutter and welding cart. And then there's the grinder. In the corner I've got some stock stored. And then there's the back of the surface grinder, but I can't even get there because the garage door's in the way. So you only can use the surface grinder with the garage door open, which makes rainy weather problematic, but Southern California, so that's not a huge problem. I've got some more round stock stored here and some square stock, mostly tool steels and the like, stored vertically, and a bunch of mailing tubes that I've glued together. And then my Baxter Verticut saw, which I absolutely adore. Fantastic. It's or like a roll-in saw, I'm sorry. And next to that, behind it, is my Mitutoyo optical comparator that I got from a company that was moving, and they basically gave it to me for a song. Love Craigslist. My hydraulic press next to that. Then over here is my Miller welder, my TIG welder. I originally had an AHP, and it was great, but I gave that to my brother-in-law and upgraded to this Miller, and I've been very happy. There's a 1-inch piece of aluminum sticking on top of my Delta Uni saw down there, the last vestige of my woodworking years. And I use it mostly as a table, although occasionally I take this plate off. I actually built a T-slot mount for it, and these two handles here allow you to remove the T-slot, and I can just slide this plate off. It's 1-inch thick aluminum plate, which gives me really good heat conduction. Actually works out really well for welding. And the extension table is a total mess. And sorry about that. There's my sticker collection from the other amazing YouTube creators. Now I'm going to open the garage door so I can get to the surface grinder. And we have first, there is a toolkit underneath the extension table, which never goes down on my table saw. Next to that is a generator that I'm selling, along with a small generator that's going to go in that spot once I've sold it. And the Acer surface grinder here that now has access. As a matter of fact, it's so tight that I can't even have the table. I can't even have this table move this direction too far and still close the garage door, so I always have to remember to put it in. And that's the fan you hear off in the background. I roll that out almost every time I get in here because it's usually hot. And that's more looking at the stock storage in the corner right next to the grinder that you saw. So we've gone full circle now. So I'm going to take you on some individual machine looks and some individual looks at the tool chest so you can see what's in them, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. This could be a very long video. This is the more I look at this, the more stuff that there is. I'm a lover of tools and always have been, so this hobby just automatically suckered me right in. All right, let's start the detailed tour with this toolbox over here. Starting on top, we have the lid that never closes, mostly because it can't, because I always have things that are too tall on the top, but that's okay. I usually have some rags stuffed up here, which I move so you don't have to see them. Starting over here, we have a 20-piece end mill set, titanium nitride coated high-speed steel. I use these a lot for flat bottom holes and non-critical applications where I just need a specific diameter because there's a whole bunch of sizes. I normally buy my end mills in 1/2 inch, 3/8 and quarter. So this covers a lot of things in between when you want a specific hole size. Although they're not very accurate diametrically, they're off by as much as 5 thousandths in diameter. These are some expanding collets for 5C, and I didn't have anywhere else to put them, so they're sticking up here at the moment. This is a bunch of gear cutter sets here of different diametral pitch. This is a 16 set, diametral pitch 16, and if you want to see what they look like, these are some inexpensive Chinese ones. This is diametral pitch 18 gear cutter set over here. So you normally have 8 cutters in the set because as the diameter of the gear changes, which also directly correlates the number of teeth, you need a different shaped cutter to handle that. Got some fly cutters that I don't use here that I bought in a set really early on. I never use high-speed steel fly cutters. I really need to get around to it someday, but just haven't. Here's a fly cutter I got from a retiring machinist. Came with a cutter already pre-ground on it, pretty nice. Haven't used this one. Actually, it's got both sides. I have never used this one either. Over here is a quill lock I made. This goes in the side of the mill where the shaft fits, and this slides around the collar. You just tighten this down and just take the thumb screw on that guy, and it prevents the mill from spindle from rotating. I've used that a couple times. Don't use it terribly often, but it was a quick build, so it worked out all right. I've got some different size countersinks. These are this is 90 degree, and these are 60 degree countersinks over here. Have some pieces of copper welding wire and some rods that I use for finding centers and things like that over here. And there's some more chamfers here. Down in here, I've got something I made recently. I bought 3 pieces of high-speed steel, 1/2 inch, 3/8 and quarter, so I didn't need to change chucks or collets if that's what I was on. And I ground them to a point, 60 degrees. And it's for finding centers really quickly. It's handy to have them if you're not trying for ultra precision, if you're just trying to get close within a couple thousandths. So they work out pretty well, and they were pretty quick to make on the surface grinder. And there's some center drills over here. Got my safety glasses, some files. This is my work stop for the mill that I made in another project really early on. I think if I made it today, I wouldn't make it out of aluminum, although it seems to be lasting just fine. But early days, I made almost everything out of aluminum just because it's easy to work with, except for the center parts here, which are stainless steel. And I thought they would be pretty in stainless. And these 2 items here are just some machinist jacks. This is a Fowler set. Nice, neatly laid out. And this set is just everything's jammed inside of a tube. Works out all right, though. And that's it for the first layer. Oh, the big handle for my Kurt Vise is over here. I almost never use it. I don't need to apply that much torque very often. All right, let's head down. Next level, next drawers. Starting with the top left drawer over here, I have 2 sets of calipers, 6-inch and a 4-inch. The 4-inch I bought while I was in school, and they still work great. They're Mitsubishi Toyos. I tried some inexpensive Harbor Freight ones, and they were not very good at the time. Harbor Freight keeps iterating their tools. They might be better now, but they were really shitty. They would not repeat. So, you know, you zero them, and you open up and close them, and they wouldn't be back at 0 again. So that was no good. There is a little machinist's level in here. Handy to have just for quick work. And a few different scales. And I gotta say, of all the scales I've got this Michutoyo, and this one's nice. And I've got this Starrett. But my favorite ones are these SPI ultra high contrast ones for bad eyes. They're really easy to read, and the black and white makes excellent contrast. I've got a little machinist square in here. This is a brown and sharp. Use it for setting up things based on the fact this part right here fits in my table slots perfectly, so I can line things up perpendicular to the table slot, which is really handy. Next drawer over, I have a couple chucks. I've got my 1/4 inch chuck. It's an Albrecht, used, bought it used but rebuilt it. That one's handy. I use it a lot with a 1/2 inch shank on it because I normally leave a 1/2 inch collet in the mill most of the time. I've also got this ultra sensitive one if I want to do really small drill bits. This is an Albrecht as well. I got a really good deal on this one. I got it from someone who's basically selling it at used prices, and it's brand new. Very nice. This is the Joe Piezinski tool, and if you haven't checked out Joe's channel, Joe Pie has a lot of really useful tips. This is a tool he sold or still sells online. If you want to support his channel, buy one. The flat part here is directly lined up with the center of this shaft, and you can use it for setting up things in the mill. I believe this is a 3/4 shaft here. Put it in a collet and you can find some positioning. Check out Joe's channel for more information on that. There's some traditional spinning center finders over here, and this is an electronic Fowler center finder that I've used for years, but I bent it. I just touched off something a little too hard. It's just an aluminum shaft there that bent. And so in order to get it square again, it was off by 12 thousandths. So I had to turn this down. So now this is like, instead of 200 thousandths, like 180 some thousandths. See, I wrote it on here somewhere. I don't see it. Oh, 185 thousandths is what it is now. There's a Starrett rotating center finder. I have my current Fowler cylindrical one, which is like that one except working. And then I have the newer one. Now these are inexpensive. These are like 20 something bucks each. This one has a ball bearing end and it's spring loaded. You can see that it pops out, but it self seats and repeats very nicely. So if you bump this one, you're not as likely to destroy it. However, being a ball bearing has its advantages and disadvantages. If you got a large flat surface, the ball bearing works fine, and as well as a cylindrical one. But if you've got a cylindrical surface you're trying to touch up on, the cylindrical one's better because it's much easier to have a cylinder find the edge of a sphere than it is to have the high point of one sphere touch the high point of another sphere. So not always useful. And back here I have a set of Starrett wigglers. You can use them for finding centers and things. To be honest, never have used this set. I've always had other solutions to find my centers. Probably, I don't even remember I've got it half the time. So, you know, the way this one works is this part goes in the spindle and the ball fits inside the part that locks off. And you can just look at it as it's wobbling around, and when it stops moving, it's centered. It's pretty straightforward. I just never have gotten around to using it. Maybe someday I'll run an application. Sometimes when you have something deep around a lot of geometry, you can't get one of these in there or one of these in there. Also, I've got a question for you guys out there. Maybe someone knows better than I do. But you know, the rotating kind rely on friction with the surface. And if you have a very smooth surface, the amount of force it takes to cause this to shift off is going to be different than if the surface is rough. And I wonder if accuracy changes with that. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. Someone out there maybe knows the answer better than I do. Next drawer, indicator with my Indicall ripoff from Edge Technologies. And I really like the Edge Technology design. It works really well. You can control how stiff these are by tightening these joints down. It works really well. Tightens on the spindle just like the Indicall. Got a Michutoyo indicator, and that's the accessories for it. I also have a tenths indicator in here that I can swap out. And this was an indicator holder I made in school as one of my school projects, and I just can't bear to get rid of it, although to be honest, never use it. It's one of those things, you made it and so you really don't want to get. Oh, I also keep my shim stock in here. If I want to touch off, you'll see me do a lot when I want to find the surface of something, I grab the shim, This is 22 thousandths because that's what I found on eBay. Rather than just buying something easy like 20 thousandths, it's easy to subtract. This is 21 thousandths, and I'll just touch off on this. Next drawer, end mills. Well, let's start over here. So over here I have two sets. This is a Starrett and a Brown & Sharp set of adjustable parallels. One of the first tools I ever bought back when I was woodworking. Very handy tool. You can use these for a lot of things. You can use them for setting up when you want to get a specific height and support another part. You can just slide this up till you support the part and then tighten it off. The other option is you want to measure the width of a slot. You pop one of these down in it, spread it out until it touches both sides, then take your indicator across both sides, which is a lot easier than getting the edges of the calipers in somewhere. I've got some surface ground blocks over here, and I use these to set up things on the mill, different shapes. I have some 1/2-inch washers that you might have seen me make. These were hardened and then ground all to be within a couple tenths of each other. And I was going to use them just as heavy-duty 1/2-inch washers, which I have done once. You can see there's some scratches on there, but it kills me every time. Instead, I just mostly use them as spacers and setup blocks like these guys over here. But if I need them, I will use them. And then I've got my end mills, not very well organized, but loosely organized. So over here in this section, roughly right here, are all of the zircon nitride coated bits. And they're great for aluminum. They don't stick. The aluminum welding is reduced significantly with these guys. In the center section here, I have some my steel cutting bits. And this is a 7 flute, and this is designed for harder metals. And since I am such a clod, one of the things I do, you'll see these little blue X's on things. Blue X's indicate that was the end mill I used most recently, if I have more than one of the exact same one, like this. And so that way I know that if I was stupid and slipped and dropped and chipped the tooth, especially these square end mills that don't have a radius tip, they break really easily. Even just using them as a milling cutter, you can break them. So I always indicate the one I'm using so that if I need something that's ultra precise and ultra critical, I can grab a brand new one. I don't have a ton of brand new ones. There's a lot of used ones in here, but in any case, that's what I do, just so that I have some in reserve in case I need them. I have chamfer mills back here. There's a 1/2-inch chamfer mill right here and some smaller ones. These are carbide, great for putting a consistent chamfer on the side of a part. And one trick to do is indicate off the back edge of the vise, run the chamfer mill along it, take your part, flip your part, which will put the next edge right in line, just go right back over again, rotate your part, etc. Handy dandy. Down here I've got some replaceable insert end mills. I've used these a little bit, especially when I'm doing something really hard. And I also have a chamfering version of that, 60 degree. And those can come in really handy when it's really hard material, so I keep those around. I've also got a bigger chamfer mill right here that's indexable. And some metric end mills back here. And the reason I've got the metric end mills is occasionally you need a slot that's a specific diameter. And you can always take a regular end mill and do it. But if I want something that's right on the money that I don't have to work too hard at, I use the metric end mills. I've got some roughing end mills over on this side. Now, by the way, you're probably wondering, how the heck does he have so many end mills? Well, to be honest, I did not go to some place like Travers or MSC and buy all of these. Never could have afforded it. A lot of these came in lots. I go to estate sales, and if I find a machinist that's ditching all their stuff, I buy a lot of their stuff. Also, I get these on eBay on sale. So like this roughing end mill, this fine rougher, it's only high-speed steel, but I got it for a good deal on eBay. I think it was like 15 or 20 bucks. So that's how I get a lot of my tools. I look for eBay deals or online deals, or go to estate sales. All right, that's it for that drawer. Let's go to the next one.